Before we begin, understand this. Most pirates did not die in battle. They died screaming, starving, or begging.
There were no heroes, no freedom, no happy endings. Only men who chose hell because the world gave them nothing else. Imagine knowing the day you step onto this ship, you will never die peacefully. They slept beside corpses, drank water filled with worms, and when food ran out, they made choices history tried to forget.
This is not a story about adventure. This is the story of what men become when freedom costs more than life itself. And if you stay, you'll understand why most...
The Horrible Life of Pirates. Part 1. The Lie That Made Men Choose Hell. They were promised gold. Not a little gold, but mountains of it. Enough to buy land, power, women, freedom. Enough to escape hunger, debt, and the slow death of poverty. That promise was a lie. What they actually found was rot, blood, disease, madness, and a life so brutal that most men didn't survive long enough to regret their choice. This is not the romantic pirate story you've seen in movies. No heroic captains, no clean ships cutting through blue water, no laughing crews drinking rum under the sun. This is the real story, the historical truth. A story where men slept beside corpses, drank water crawling with worms, lost limbs to infection, and sometimes preferred suicide over another sunrise at sea. This is the horrible life of pirates. The world that created pirates. To understand why piracy exploded, you have to understand the world of the late 1600s and early 1700s. Europe was choking. England, France, Spain, and the Netherlands were locked in endless wars. Cities were overcrowded, jobs were scarce, food prices climbed while wages collapsed. Thousands of men, especially sailors, were disposable. If you were born poor, you were already condemned. Sailors were treated worse than animals. On merchant and naval ships, discipline was enforced with whips, chains, and execution. Beatings were daily, food was rotten, pay was often delayed for years or never paid at all. Desertion meant death. So when whispers spread through taverns and docks about a different life, one where sailors voted for leaders, shared plunder equally, and lived free from kings, men listened. They shouldn't have. The first lie: pirates were free. Pirates liked to call themselves free men. In reality, piracy replaced one form of hell with another. Yes, pirate crews voted for captains. Yes, loot was divided more fairly than on merchant ships. But freedom at sea came with a cost few understood. There was no law, only violence. No safety, only survival. No mercy, only fear. Once you became a pirate, there was no retirement plan, no going home, no forgiveness. Every nation on earth wanted you dead. Life aboard a pirate ship. A pirate ship was not a place, it was a floating prison. Most ships were stolen merchant vessels, never designed to hold large crews for long voyages. Space was suffocating. Men slept inches from each other, often on wet wood crawling with lice, fleas, and rats. The smell never left. Rotting food, human waste, sweat, blood. Fresh water spoiled quickly. After weeks at sea, it turned green and slimy, filled with larvae. Men drank it anyway, or died. Food was worse. Hardtack biscuits were often so infested with worms that sailors ate them in the dark to avoid seeing what they swallowed. Meat was salted until it was nearly inedible. If the ship ran low on supplies, starvation began fast. And pirates didn't just starve, they went insane. Disease, the silent killer. More pirates died from disease than combat. Scurvy was constant. Gums rotted until teeth fell out. Old scars reopened. Men screamed in pain as their bodies collapsed from vitamin deficiency. Dysentery killed slowly and humiliatingly. Men defecated blood until dehydration finished the job. Infections were worse. A small cut could mean death. Without antibiotics, wounds festered, flesh turned black. Maggots were sometimes encouraged because they ate dead tissue, one of the few treatments available. Amputation was common. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just a saw, rum, and screaming. Many died from shock. Violence was inevitable. Pirates lived by violence because violence was the only currency that worked. Merchant crews were beaten into submission. Captains were tortured to reveal hidden valuables. Some pirates used knives, others fire, others slow psychological terror. Not all pirates were monsters, but survival favored the cruel. Refusing violence made you weak. Weakness got you killed. Even among pirates, betrayal was constant. Arguments over loot ended in murder. Drunken fights turned deadly. Mutiny was always one bad decision away. A pirate ship could explode from within at any moment. The myth of endless gold. Most pirates never became rich. Yes, a few legendary figures captured massive prizes, but the majority stole small shipments: sugar, cloth, tobacco, rum. Loot was quickly spent on alcohol, prostitutes, gambling, and bribes. Pirates lived fast because deep down they knew they wouldn't live long. The average pirate career lasted less than 5 years. Many lasted less than 1. The price of capture. If disease or violence didn't kill a pirate, the law would. Captured pirates were not imprisoned, they were erased. Executions were public and brutal. Hangings were slow. Bodies were sometimes coated in tar and displayed in iron cages along harbors as warnings. Pirates were denied proper burials. Their deaths were meant to terrify others into obedience. It rarely worked. Why men still chose piracy. So why did men choose this life? Because the alternative felt worse. Slavery aboard merchant ships, beatings in the navy, starvation on land. Piracy was not chosen because it was good. It was chosen because it was slightly less hopeless. At least pirates died on their own terms, so they believed.
And this was only the beginning. In the next part, we will descend deeper. The psychological breakdown of pirate crews, the true brutality of famous pirate captains, cannibalism, torture, and internal terror. Why pirate democracy often ended in blood. This story only gets darker. Part 2. When freedom turned into madness. They didn't scream when the rope tightened. Most of them were already too weak. Their bodies swung slowly above the harbor, boots dripping seawater, faces purple and swollen. Below them, crowds gathered, men, women, even children, forced to watch. This was not justice. This was a warning. And it was meant for men exactly like the ones who once believed piracy was freedom. The second lie. Pirates were brothers. Pirates liked to call each other brothers of the coast. In reality, pirate brotherhood was thin, fragile, and soaked in fear. Yes, pirates signed articles, early contracts that promised fairness, equal shares of loot, compensation for lost limbs, a voice in decisions. But those papers meant nothing when hunger arrived, or alcohol, or paranoia. Trust died fast at sea. A pirate slept with one eye open, not because of enemies, but because of the men beside him. Alcohol, the fuel of destruction. Rum was not a luxury. It was survival. Pirates drank constantly, not to celebrate, but to forget. Forget the smell of death below deck. Forget the screams during boarding. Forget the fact that they might be dead within weeks. But alcohol didn't bring peace. It brought violence. Drunken arguments escalated into knife fights. Pistols were fired in cramped quarters. Men bled out on deck over insults they wouldn't even remember the next morning. Captains lost control often, and when a captain lost authority, mutiny followed. Mutiny wasn't rare, it was expected. Every pirate captain ruled on borrowed time. The moment the crew believed he was weak, unlucky, or unfair, they voted him out or killed him. Some captains were marooned on empty islands with a pistol, a single bullet, and a bottle of rum. Others were stabbed while sleeping. A few were tortured slowly, accused of hiding gold that didn't exist. Piracy did not reward leadership, it punished it. The psychological collapse at sea. Weeks turned into months, months into years. Men stopped counting time. The ocean erased routine, morality, and sanity. Many pirates developed severe paranoia. They believed crewmates were poisoning them, stealing from them, plotting murder. Some refused to eat unless others tasted the food first. Sleep deprivation was constant. Storms could keep crews awake for days. Fear of attack meant weapons were always ready. The human mind was not built for this. Men cracked. Cannibalism, the final line. There were moments, real documented moments, when pirates crossed a line no man returns from. When ships were stranded, when supplies vanished, when rescue never came. They ate rats first, then leather, then shoes, and sometimes each other. Survivor accounts describe lotteries, drawings to decide who would die so others could live. Victims were killed quickly, if lucky. Unlucky ones were butchered alive. This was not piracy as legend remembers it. This was desperation. Famous pirates were often the worst monsters. History remembers names like heroes: Blackbeard, Charles Vane, Edward Lowe. The truth is uglier. Edward Lowe, for example, enjoyed torture. He cut off ears, lips, and noses. He forced prisoners to eat parts of their own bodies. Even other pirates feared him. Blackbeard cultivated terror as a weapon. He lit fuses in his beard to look like a demon from hell. He killed crew members simply to remind others of his power. These men weren't rebels, they were predators. Women and pirates, a brutal reality. Women aboard pirate ships were rare. But when they existed, life was hell. Captured women were often abused repeatedly. Some were forced to dress as men to avoid assault. Others were killed quickly because captains feared conflict among the crew. Romance had no place here, only survival. The sea itself was an enemy. Storms destroyed ships without warning. Waves smashed men overboard. Hurricanes swallowed entire crews. If you fell into the ocean, no one stopped. Stopping meant death for everyone. Sharks followed ships for a reason. The third lie. Pirates died gloriously. There was nothing glorious at the end. Most pirates died sick, drunk, or betrayed. Those captured were humiliated, paraded through towns in chains, mocked, starved. Executions were slow. Some were hanged until unconscious, cut down, revived, and hanged again, a method called hanging in chains.
Bodies were displayed for weeks as warnings. The message was clear. This is what happens when you choose piracy. And yet, men still joined. Even knowing all this, even seeing bodies rot in iron cages, men still stepped onto pirate ships because the world they came from offered nothing better. Piracy was not a dream, it was a gamble against certain misery. In Part 3, The Darkness Deepens, Child Pirates and Stolen Childhoods, How Pirates Hunted Slaves and Became Slaves, the true economics of piracy and why most were poor, the moment piracy began to collapse into total annihilation. This story is far from over. Part 3, Stolen Childhoods, Broken Minds, and the Business of Human Flesh. The smallest hands were often the first to die. They couldn't pull ropes fast enough, couldn't climb rigging in storms, couldn't hold their breath when the sea turned violent. So they were beaten or thrown overboard. No songs were sung for them, no legends remembered their names. This is the part of the pirate story most people never hear. Child pirates, boys who never chose this life. Not every pirate was a hardened criminal. Many were children. Boys as young as 9 or 10 were taken from ports, fishing boats, or captured ships. Some were orphans. Others had families who never saw them again. They were called powder monkeys, tasked with carrying gunpowder during battles. It was the most dangerous job on the ship. If a cannon exploded, the child died first. If battle went wrong, the child was expendable. Pirate articles rarely protected them. They were property, not crew. Abuse was routine. Children were beaten for mistakes, starved as punishment, sexually abused in silence. There was no authority to complain to. At sea, pain was invisible. Those who survived often became the most violent adults, not because they were born cruel, but because cruelty was the only language they learned. Pirates and slavery, the ultimate hypocrisy. Pirates claimed they hated slavery. This was another lie. Pirates attacked slave ships not to free the enslaved, but to steal them. Strong captives were forced to work. Others were sold in secret ports. Some were kept as bargaining chips. African, indigenous, and Caribbean people suffered twice, first as slaves, then as pirate property. A few were allowed to join crews, but equality was rare and fragile. Freedom ended the moment profit appeared. When pirates became slaves. Ironically, many pirates ended their lives enslaved. Captured by North African corsairs, European pirates were sold in Algiers, Tunis, or Tripoli. They were beaten, branded, and forced into hard labor. Some spent decades in chains. They had chosen piracy to escape oppression. They found something worse. The economics of piracy, why most pirates stayed poor. Loot had to be divided, ships needed repair, weapons cost money, bribes were constant. A single bad voyage could bankrupt a crew. Many pirates returned to port with nothing. Debt followed them even into lawlessness. There were no banks, no savings, no future.
gambling, destroying what little they had. When pirates did get paid, they destroyed themselves. Dice, cards, bets. Men gambled away months of suffering in a single night. Arguments followed. Knives came out. Money turned friends into enemies. Mental illness at sea. Modern psychology would recognize what pirates endured as severe trauma. Nightmares, hallucinations, uncontrollable rage, emotional numbness. Some pirates talked to the ocean. Others believed ghosts followed them. Suicide was not rare. Men jumped overboard at night, choosing the sea over another day of fear. Torture wasn't always about information. Pirates didn't just torture for gold. Sometimes it was boredom. After months at sea, violence became entertainment. Burning skin with heated blades, breaking fingers slowly, mock executions. Not all pirates participated, but those who refused risked becoming victims themselves. The beginning of the end. By the early 1700s, the world had had enough. Empires adapted, navies expanded, patrols increased, laws tightened. Kings offered pardons, not out of mercy, but strategy. Accept forgiveness or die. Some pirates surrendered. Most didn't trust kings who had already betrayed them once. They kept sailing, straight into extinction. The turning point, when fear stopped working. Pirates had relied on terror to win battles quickly, but merchant ships began fighting back. Convoys formed, cannons multiplied. Suddenly, piracy meant real war. Casualties exploded, survival rates collapsed, and still the sea called. Even as piracy died, men joined, because myths last longer than truth, because desperation is louder than warning, because hope, false or not, is powerful. In Part 4, the final collapse begins. Pirate hunters and professional executioners, the most infamous trials in history, the last words of condemned pirates, why piracy vanished almost overnight. Retention hook. What finally broke the pirate myth and why it never returned? Part 4. The men who hunted monsters and became one themselves. They didn't wear black flags, they wore uniforms, and they were far more terrifying than pirates ever were. Because pirates killed for survival, these men killed to send a message. The world declares war on piracy. By the early 1700s, piracy was no longer an inconvenience, it was a global threat. Trade routes were bleeding money, insurance costs exploded, entire colonies were on the brink of collapse. Kings didn't fear pirates because they were criminals, they feared them because they were disruptive. So the order went out: end piracy completely. No negotiations, no mercy. The rise of pirate hunters. Governments unleashed professional pirate hunters, naval officers paid to destroy pirates, not arrest them. These men were rewarded per head. The more pirates they killed, the richer they became, and killing became efficient. Ships were tracked, hideouts mapped, pirate havens burned to the ground. The sea stopped being neutral, it became a battlefield. Captain Woodes Rogers, the man who broke the Caribbean. Woodes Rogers wasn't a legend, he was a strategist. Appointed governor of the Bahamas, Rogers arrived with warships, soldiers, and royal pardons. Pirates had a choice: accept the pardon and abandon piracy forever, or be hunted until death. Rogers didn't bluff. Those who resisted were executed publicly. Nassau, the pirate capital of the world, collapsed almost overnight. The betrayal of the pardons. Many pirates accepted royal forgiveness. They were fools. Some were later arrested on technicalities. Others were executed anyway when political winds changed. Kings didn't forgive pirates. They erased them. Trusting authority had doomed pirates once again. Pirate trials, theater of death. Trials were not about justice. They were about fear. Pirates were denied real defense. Evidence was often fabricated. Witnesses were bribed. Verdicts were predetermined. Execution followed swiftly.
Some trials lasted less than a day. The message was clear. The law is stronger than terror. Execution